I was not NNNN19. I was not NNNN19.
NNNN19. He was 19. Tenía 19.
Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. And, I really need you to picture this right off the bat. Imagine a single spotlight hitting the center stage at the Eco-Party Security Conference.
Just dead quiet in the room.
Exactly. Dead quiet.
Yeah.
The researcher, Alberto Daniel Hill, is standing there. He's absolutely motionless. He's not smiling. And underneath it all, while he's standing there, there's this relentless, slow, industrial heartbeat vibrating right up through the floorboards.
Like right into the soles of your shoes.
Yeah. This deep sub-bass pulse just looping over and over. It carries this heavy, almost suffocating weight of a machine that, frankly, requires a human sacrifice to keep its gears turning.
NNNN19?
Right, exactly. We are unpacking his official submission today, titled La Fábrica del Miedo.
The Fear Factory. How private intelligence fabricates cyber cartels to frame the innocent.
That's the one. And the entire time Alberto is on stage giving this presentation, that bass line is just grinding underneath his voice. NNNN19.
NNNN19. It's an inescapable rhythm, really, and it perfectly mirrors the algorithmic inevitability of the system he's deconstructing here.
Because this isn't just some dry technical debrief, right?
No, not at all. We are dissecting a multi-million-dollar framework built by state agencies, private intelligence firms, and, honestly, compliant media outlets.
A whole ecosystem.
Yeah, an ecosystem engineered to monetize panic, abstract institutional failure, and then funnel all that resulting liability directly onto a mathematically unfit scapegoat who just happens to be...
NNNN19. He was 19.
Exactly.
So the Eco-Party submission drops us right into this clinical recitation.
Yeah.
Alberto says on stage, and I'm quoting here, they say each story is unique, but some repeat. It's like an algorithm. A sequence of events, a cycle incomplete, an inescapable rhythm.
It's poetic, but terrifyingly literal.
Yeah. And then he states, I was not NNNN19. 9 years ago, I stood in a different room wearing different chains. I was not NNNN19. But the machine still took me.
Which brings us to the first run of this algorithm back in 2017.
Right. So let's establish the baseline here.
The 2017 iteration is basically the compiler sequence for the modern Fear Factory. And the target back then was Alberto himself.
Because he discovered something massive. Huh?
Huge. A catastrophic vulnerability in a Uruguayan medical database. We are talking hundreds of thousands of patient records exposed.
And why were they exposed?
Because the architecture relied on default cryptographic keys.
Wow. Okay, just to pause on that, deploying a production database containing highly sensitive, regulated medical data with default keys isn't just an oversight.
No, it's active negligence.
Right. It means there is no actual access control layer. Anyone scanning the network topology can just walk right in.
Exactly. So Alberto initiated an ethical disclosure. He operated strictly within responsible bounds to flag the vulnerability.
Trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, trying to help. But the state's calculus, when facing an unmitigated disaster like that, it doesn't prioritize remediation.
No, it prioritizes optics. They need to look good, or at least not look terrible.
Right. So when a legitimate extortion event occurred shortly after his disclosure, the state didn't analyze the access logs to track the actual intrusion vectors.
Of course not. That would take actual forensic work.
Instead, they weaponized Alberto's own forensic tools and his ethical reports against him. They called it Operation Bitcoins.
Operation Bitcoins. Catchy.
They inverted his disclosure and framed him as the threat actor just to rapidly close the public relations hemorrhage.
Because the state doesn't need root cause analysis, do they? They just need a face.
Exactly. They locked him in a freezing cell in Durazno for 8 months.
8 months.
8 months of total psychological destruction. They don't need they just need a face.
But wait, he beat the charges, right? I mean, he dismantled their narrative and fundamentally altered the legislative landscape upon his release. So if he survived and beat them, why is he back on stage at Eco-Party?
Well, the system didn't break. It just updated its targeting parameters.
Oh, I see, because he was not in NNN19, but the next one was.
NNN19. 19. The machine processed its failure from 2017.
It learned.
Yeah, it realized that targeting an actual cybersecurity researcher with the technical acumen to fight back that was inefficient.
Right. You don't pick a fight with someone who knows how the network actually works.
Exactly. So when the algorithm executed its next major cycle, it adjusted the variables.
Fast forward to May 2026. We get this violent déjà vu, the TuID exfiltration.
Right, TuID.
And my read on the Antel documentation regarding TuID is that this wasn't just some basic single sign-on portal.
No, not at all.
This was a centralized, state-managed digital identity vault. It was meant to warehouse citizens' biometric metadata. And we were looking at an 8-gigabyte database exfiltration.
8 gigs of pure, sensitive biometric data.
But here's what fundamentally shatters the state's narrative for me. The presence of hard-coded credentials in the application's source code.
It's wild.
I mean, if developers are hard-coding API keys or database credentials directly into the binary, any threat actor who decompiles the application has permanent privileged access.
They practically left the master key taped to the front door.
Exactly. But what I really don't understand is how does an 8-gigabyte exfiltration happen without tripping egress alarms on the state's SIME infrastructure?
Well, the lack of egress filtering highlights the exact institutional rot the fear factory is designed to obscure.
So they were just blind.
Completely blind. If your SIME isn't configured to anomaly detect an 8-gigabyte outbound data stream from a critical identity vault, your infrastructure is useless.
So the state's pride was decimated, the architecture was bleeding out.
And just like in 2017, they initiated a snare operation to produce a decoy, a señuelo.
Enter Juan Manuel Lajmachi, hashtag Uruguay 1337.
Yeah.
And he was NNNNN19. Piagenway. He was 19.
The intelligence reports in our stack profile, Uruguay 1337, not as some advanced persistent threat, but basically as a peripheral telegram troll.
A reseller, right?
Yeah, reseller.
And in the current cybercrime ecosystem, a reseller is mathematically incapable of architecting a breach of this magnitude.
Oh, entirely.
We aren't talking about purchasing bulk access tokens. To silently exfiltrate 8 gigabytes of biometric data, bypass modern security protocols, extract hard-coded keys from decompiled binaries, and maintain persistent, undetected access for months.
That requires deep architectural knowledge.
Exactly. A deep understanding of Python network topology. And the intelligence files explicitly note this kid had abysmal operational security and zero capacity for complex programming.
He couldn't build the code. He couldn't architect the lateral movement within the network. Mathematically, he was unfit for the crime.
But he was loud on Telegram.
Right. He was standing in the blast radius with a loudmouth on Telegram.
They didn't need a mastermind. They needed a physical body to parade in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
And this time, he was NNNN19.
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 And the crazy part is, the true threat actor behind the TuID breach, PambaLeaks, actually confirmed this dynamic in real time.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The Eco-Party submission includes PambaLeaks' internal Telegram logs from the exact day of the arrest.
Wow. So this is the cryptographic proof of the state's theater.
Exactly. While the police are holding these serious press conferences declaring they've decapitated the cyber cartel, the actual cartel leadership is in a private chat laughing
at them.
They explicitly state, "The main target is me." They mock the fact that the state handed over a low-level, already publicly doxed mule just to feed their own desperation for a win.
It's a systemic transaction, isn't it?
100%. The state requires a closure file to preempt legislative oversight.
And the actual threat actors require the state to stop looking for them.
Right. Serving up a 19-year-old decoy satisfies both requirements perfectly.
19 years of life compressed into a file that the system needed closed before the real questions could be asked. NNNN19.
NNNN19.
But, the state can't just arrest a random Telegram troll and claim he's an apex predator.
No,
the public wouldn't buy it.
No, it would look ridiculous.
You need a PR department to bridge that narrative gap. You need to manufacture a crisis large enough to justify this huge arrest operation.
Which brings us to the operational mechanics of La Fábrica del Miedo. The fear factory itself.
Let's get into the corporate smoke machine.
The Eco-Party presentation details the involvement of a firm called BCA Ltd.
Birmingham Cyber Arms Ltd.
Right. Directed by Mauro Francisco Caceres, who operates under the alias Mauro Eldridge.
And the BCA Ltd architecture is fascinating, just in its sheer audacity. They didn't just exaggerate threats, they literally synthesized them.
They invented ghosts on the screen.
Exactly. They established a fabricated threat actor, a ghost cartel called ex-presidents, or dead presidents.
Starting in early 2024, this ex-president's persona began posting on underground forums, and they were claiming massive, catastrophic breaches of Uruguayan infrastructure.
Like what?
The Intendencia de Flores, the Postal Service, various sports clubs, really high-profile stuff.
But when you actually parse the forensic analysis of the payloads they were uploading, The narrative completely collapses mathematically
It falls apart instantly.
because they were uploading 360 kilobyte zip files.
Tiny.
I mean, you can't even fit a heavily compressed PDF of a single database table in 360 kilobytes, let alone millions of compromised records.
Not a chance.
When you analyze the payload structure, it's nothing but basic front-end HTML, cascading style sheets, and maybe a few lines of scraped, publicly available OSINT data.
It is a mathematical impossibility for those payloads to be the state-level breaches they claim to be.
Yet BCA-LTD, the very entity managing this fabricated persona, would utilize their commercial threat intelligence platform, which they called Sheriff, to mysteriously discover these 360 kilobyte payloads.
How convenient.
Right. They would immediately initiate an aggressive media escalation, tagging journalists and issuing severe warnings about this elite cyber syndicate ravaging the nation's infrastructure.
They created the monster and then blew the whistle on it.
I have to interject here because the closed-loop revenue generation of this is staggering.
It's brilliant in a highly unethical way.
Think about it. It's like a security firm detonating a smoke grenade in a crowded theater, barricading the doors, and then walking through the coughing crowd selling oxygen masks via a subscription model.
That's exactly what it is.
They synthesize the problem, amplify the panic through their proprietary platform, and secure state contracts to monitor the very ghosts they programmed.
But the smoke grenade only works if someone is broadcasting the panic to the masses.
True. You need a megaphone.
And that broadcast mechanism was provided by the media. The sources highlight Juan Pablo DeMarco, a journalist at El Observador,
Right.
and the intelligence reports brutally classify him as a, quote, useful idiot for BCA-LTD.
I mean, if DeMarco or his editors had possessed even a rudimentary understanding of digital forensics.
Even just looking at the file size.
Exactly. If they had verified a cryptographic hash or simply looked at the file size of the supposed massive breach, the entire ex-president's narrative would have evaporated.
But instead, they amplified it. DeMarco bypassed all independent technical verification.
If BCA-LTD flagged a 360 kilobyte style sheet as a catastrophic state breach, El Observador printed it as ground truth.
They elevated ex-presidents to the status of an elite syndicate and positioned BCA-LTD as the indispensable vanguard capable of tracking them.
And the narrative manipulation reached its absolute apex when the real TuID breach happened via PampaLeaks.
Oh, this part's wild.
BCA-LTD and El Observador actually attempted to co-opt the legitimate breach. They spun it as a cyber turf war between PampaLeaks and their fabricated ex-president's cartel.
They attempted to legitimize their synthetic cartel by grafting it onto a verified intrusion.
It's just so bold.
And the resulting public terror placed overwhelming pressure on state institutions. The authorities were actively contracting BCA-LTD specifically, a $29,000 contract mentioned in the sources to combat a threat that didn't exist.
A $29,000 contract to fight a fake cartel. And they put a kid in the cell who was NNNN19.
NNNN19. The Fear Factory required raw material to validate its existence.
So they doxed the 19-year-old mule.
Handed the telemetry to the authorities, and the state, desperate for a tangible victory in the face of the TuID disaster, executed the arrest.
NNN19.
DD19.
He was 19. I can hear that sub bass just grinding now.
Yeah.
So this kid goes to a maximum security prison. The state updates their optics. BCA-LTD expands their sheriff subscriptions, and the media harvests their engagement metrics. The loop is closed.
Except the state's network is still bleeding.
Right. The real hackers are still inside.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the state's default defense mechanism, the protocol of silence.
The protocol of silence is the state's clinical institutional reflex to isolate and deny. And we see this explicitly in the October 2025 GRI incident.
GRI. Let's talk about GRI. That's the primary education system architecture in Uruguay, right?
Yeah, student records, faculty data, familial connections, it's highly sensitive.
And it gets defaced with a static image and the text Pablo Bolso.
Right.
And the state's reaction is to trigger what they call moto paranoia.
Total system isolation.
Air-gapping central offices, blocking pre-registrations, literally forcing national faculty into manual, paper-based attendance.
Because the internal logs confirmed, threat actors had persistent access to at least 6 core database tables.
But what is the external communication to the public? Absolute denial of extraction. They issue statements claiming, quote, "Por el momento, no se encontró extracción de datos." They acknowledge the downtime, but categorically deny any mass exfiltration.
And this wasn't an isolated PR strategy. The sources mapped this exact reflex across multiple vectors, like the Siebel Education Network. They said, no internal network access, just basic data.
SCCEFI, the vehicle tax system.
No evidence of a hack.
The DNIC civil registry.
Just recirculated old files, downplay, isolate, and deny.
But the critical failure of the protocol of silence is that it assumes denial mitigates the threat.
Which it obviously doesn't.
Right. Because while the state was deploying PR to obscure the intrusions, BampleLeaks was quietly compiling all those exfiltrated datasets.
They're building something.
They transitioned from basic hacktivism and defacements into a highly structured cybercrime as a service model.
The Samaritan API. Exactly. This Samaritan API, they developed a data as a service platform. And the architecture of this API, as detailed in the forensic documentation, is genuinely chilling.
Let's break down that architecture, because I want you listening to really understand this. This isn't just a static SQL dump circulating on some hidden Tor node.
No, it's way more advanced.
The Samaritan API functions like a relational GraphQL endpoint for human identity. You don't just download a flat file. You query a dynamic web of relationships.
You ping a national ID, and it instantly returns a cascading tree of physical addresses, phone histories, and familial links.
And the API documentation specifically boasts that it is engineered for private intelligence.
They explicitly contrast their infrastructure with state APIs. They note that while government databases are built for sluggish bureaucracy, the Samaritan API is optimized for high-speed surveillance and citizen tracking.
And the pricing structure is aggressively accessible. It's not thousands of dollars, it's $5 a week.
$15 a month, or $60 for 3 months.
Payable entirely in Bitcoin. They are leveraging the Bitcoin mempool and transaction masking to create a frictionless, untraceable subscription model.
Anyone can use it.
We are looking at endpoints like /telford.org to trace the ownership history of a phone number, or /Gemini-Telefono to link a national ID directly to telecom data.
And /direction-personas to pull the historical residency of citizens in specific physical locations.
And they actually proved the efficacy of their own infrastructure, didn't they?
Yeah, they used it to track down the physical address and personal phone number of Mauro Eldritch himself.
The director of BCA Ltd.
Yes. They published it as a proof of concept. They weaponized the intelligence against the very private firm attempting to monetize them.
That is poetic justice in the darkest way possible. Now, I want to be meticulously clear about the political neutrality of BampleLeaks operations based on the intelligence reports we have.
Yes, that's crucial.
We are strictly analyzing their methodology and their stated motives. We are not taking sides here. The logs prove they breached both right-wing and left-wing administrations with equal aggression.
Right. They extracted data from Luis Lacalpo's government, and they also targeted opposition leader Yamandu Orsi.
Their stated motive in the Telegram extracts is conducting forced audits to expose the gross technical incompetence of state tech agencies, whom they classify as parasites.
We aren't endorsing their ideology. We are just recognizing that they are operating outside traditional political warfare.
Their operational thesis is rooted in technical superiority and radical transparency through destruction.
But the reality of their output is a catastrophic privacy failure for everyday citizens.
Because the state is utilizing forensic theater to justify the arrest of a 19-year-old, declaring the threat neutralized.
NNN19.
Well, meanwhile, BampleLeaks is actively deploying Samaritan API version 1.3, which indexes a staggering 230 million records across Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, and Peru.
And because of the state's protocol of silence, because they refused to patch the vulnerabilities and instead focused on the decoy, BampleLeaks no longer even requires live access to government servers.
They just mirrored it all.
They mirrored the databases onto their own sovereign infrastructure. No state agency can issue a takedown request for the Samaritan API. It's out of their hands.
And while 230 million records are being sold, the cameras look the other way at a kid who is NNN19.
NNN19. D-19. The dissonance is just deafening.
Machine is running.
In the baseline hits this chaotic, overlapping stutter, and then absolute silence.
And the bass returns. Slow. Methodical. So let's pivot back to Alberto Daniel Hill on the Ego Party main stage.
Because he doesn't just deconstruct the problem. Right?
Exactly. He introduces a mathematical framework to combat the fear factory. It's called the Forensic Risk Indicator, or the FRI.
The FRI is a rigorously quantified 0 to 10 scale. It's fully aligned with ISO IEC 27037 standards for digital evidence identification, collection, acquisition, and preservation.
It is designed to strip away narrative spin and measure objective cryptographic truth.
So how does the FRI algorithm actually calculate the score? Because the sources outline 5 heavily weighted variables.
Right. Each of the 5 variables is scored from 0.0 to 2.0. The first is evidence handling integrity, or EHI.
What does that measure?
This mathematically evaluates the chain of custody. Did the investigators utilize SHA-256 or MD5 cryptographic hashes to prove the evidence hasn't been altered?
Crucial for actual forensics.
The second variable is attribution stability, AS. Is a technical linkage to the suspect derived from verifiable network telemetry, or is it just a subjective leap based on media speculation?
Got it. And the third?
Narrative consistency, NC. When the state issues a PR statement, does it align perfectly with the raw server logs, or is there a verifiable divergence?
I bet that one fails often.
Oh, constantly. Fourth is defensive password DP. If an institution claims rigorous security, but the decompiled application reveals hard-coded credentials in plain text,
Like TuID.
exactly like TuID, that scores a critical failure. And finally, response behavior, RB. Does the institution engage in collaborative remediation, or do they deploy NDAs, gag orders, and legal threats against researchers?
Okay, so if an investigation's cumulative score hits 8.0 or higher on the FRI scale, the framework officially designates the event as forensic theater.
Forensic theater. And when Alberto ran the TuID investigation, the exact investigation that resulted in the imprisonment of Uruguayo 1337 through the FRI framework,
It scored an 8.0 out of 10.0.
is the apex of forensic theater. The state fundamentally violated the core tenets of digital forensics
The EHI variable completely collapsed,
because the authorities relied on unverified Telegram screenshots as primary evidence.
which is insane. You cannot submit a JPEG of a Telegram chat in a rigorous forensic environment.
Without the underlying metadata, without the cryptographic hash of the original device extraction, a screenshot can be fabricated in Photoshop in 3 minutes.
There was absolutely no digital signature tying the 19-year-old's hardware to the actual server intrusions.
Furthermore, they integrated unverified third-party intelligence from BCA Ltd. Directly into the judicial pipeline.
They allowed a private firm with a direct financial conflict of interest, a firm actively selling subscriptions to monitor the threat, to dictate the attribution of the suspect.
They didn't need the truth. They just needed a face NNN19.
NNN19.
I mean, think about the implications of that for you, the listener. How do you mount a legal defense when the judicial system is so technologically illiterate that they accept a printed screenshot as immutable truth?
When the math is absent, narrative manipulation wins. Every time.
This is precisely why Alberto contrasts the TuID failure with the cryptographic protocol utilized by the Kronos Mafia, another entity analyzed in the sources.
The Kronos Mafia operates on a completely different paradigm of provenance. They don't rely on screenshots to claim an intrusion.
What do they use?
They append time-stamped PGP signature blocks to their manifests.
Right. And by utilizing a public and private key architecture, a PGP signature mathematically guarantees 2 things. First, non-repudiation.
Meaning the message definitively originated from the holder of the private key.
Exactly. And second, data integrity, meaning the message has not been altered by a single byte since it was signed.
It effectively neutralizes the corporate smoke machine. BCA Ltd. cannot manipulate a PGP signed manifest because altering even one character of the text breaks the cryptographic hash.
Cryptographic truth becomes an immutable reality. It bypasses media spin entirely. But the state didn't utilize cryptography for the 19-year-old?
No, they utilize theater.
NNN19. They compressed a life into a file because it was computationally and politically easier than admitting architectural failure.
NNN19. He was 19.
The heartbeat slows down to a crawl here. We are basically whispering over the beat now because we have to analyze the chilling effect this has on the broader ecosystem.
It's devastating.
The most surreal, tragic document in this entire stack of sources highlights the sheer desperation of trying to combat this machinery.
It's an email from Alberto Daniel Hill reaching out to the 90s television actress Nicole Eggert.
Yes, a cybersecurity researcher in Uruguay is sending emails to the star of Baywatch.
It sounds absurd, but the context is heartbreaking.
He writes, quote, "I wanted to share something that's happening right now because I know your voice and heart could make a real difference. Just 2 days ago, it's a cybersecurity company in Mexico called Bprime got hit with a pretty big data breach. Over 40 gigabytes of sensitive client information.
And what did the company do?
Well, instead of owning it with full transparency, their official press release sounded like they were threatening legal action against journalists and researchers, like me, who were simply sharing the proven facts.
He is asking her to record a 1-minute selfie video supporting ethical hackers.
Because he's desperate.
And the underlying reality of why he has to do this is devastating. When ethical researchers expose vulnerabilities, the corporate reflex isn't remediation, it's litigation.
They deploy SLAPP suits and legal bludgeons to enforce the protocol of silence.
When the truth isn't enough to protect you from corporate lawyers, you are forced to beg celebrities for PR leverage.
The Fear Factory uses the legal system to systematically eradicate ethical disclosure.
And when you use legal threats to silence the ethical researchers, you create a massive intelligence vacuum.
The people capable of patching the infrastructure are forced out because the personal liability is just too extreme.
And who fills that vacuum?
The state parasites, the corporate smoke machines like BCA Ltd, and the legitimate threat actors who don't care about your NDAs.
Pampa Leaks understands this dynamic perfectly. The sources show them actively advising younger hackers on how to navigate this exact vacuum.
Pampa Leaks explicitly warns against the pursuit of media clout, don't they?
Yeah, they mock a script kiddie named Lahi or Vladi who compromised a ferry company and immediately sought public recognition.
They want the fame.
Pampa Leaks advises strict operational security. They say, utilize no-log VPNs, analyze traffic patterns, and absolutely stay off the radar.
Because if you chase the media, the Fear Factory will process you into a decoy.
The professionals operate in the shadows, quietly selling API access for Bitcoin.
First they take the future, then they take the name, then they take the years.
And when they finally open the door again, the boy who walked in at 19 no longer exists. Only the damage remains.
DDDD destruction. DDDD destruction.
NNNN19.
The industrial beat is fading, but that stuttering loop refuses to die. Alberto Daniel Hill's presentation at EcoParty is a masterclass in radical transparency.
It proves, with forensic receipts and architectural breakdowns, how state institutions and private intelligence firms synergize with technologically illiterate judicial systems to monetize panic.
They synthesize ghost cartels, they bypass cryptographic verification, and they utilize forensic theater to construct mathematically impossible narratives, ultimately framing innocent, mathematically unfit teenagers.
They prioritize the survival of the institution over the liberty of the individual, every single time.
Which leaves us with the Samaritan API, the $5 a week, cryptographically untraceable search engine that is currently indexing 230 million records.
Your physical addresses, your telecom history, your familial connections.
The window of vulnerability isn't just open, the frame has been entirely removed, and the people holding the data are actively selling access while the state just looks the other way.
So, as the beat finally grinds to a halt, you have to ask yourself, when the system inevitably overflows again,
When the state infrastructure fails and they desperately need another face to cover their negligence.
who will the machine choose next?
Could it be you?
Could it be you?
Because I was not NNNN19, but someone always is. NNNN19.
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 NNNNN19.